we hit it off because he loves to laugh and he's a very funny guy, and we would have a lot of laughs about a lot of stuff. And, you know, that really breaks down the ice. So, but he was a great boss. He would tell you what he wanted to do. He wouldn't micromanage it. He employed everybody to be themselves. So it was my job really to just funnel the information around to everybody and make sure that everybody was on board and knew what it, and make it happen. He liked things to happen really quickly. Now, of course, if you missed the cues and you didn't read his intentions, then he was a hard taskmaster, you know.
Yeah, perfectionist.
But mostly it went really well. And, you know, I understood that from being in bands and also maybe being a band leader in the past, and working with artists, that, you know, it's about trying to understand what the creative vision is and to realize that. And there's many pieces to that. There's the technical side and there's the artistic side and there's some very pragmatic pieces, and then there's the moment where you just let everybody be.
And that's what David Bowie loved you for and made you the musical director. I mean, my gosh. Yeah. Well, initially he did this beautiful record called Heathen, which I got to play on the tail end of, and then he wanted to do a show for the Meltdown Festival that year in London that the record came out. I think it was 2001. Where he was going to play the Low record from the Berlin trilogy, which is all Brian Eno and influenced and stuff, and then the Heathen record. So I came on. They needed a kind of out-of-the-box guitar player, if you like, and he actually came to see me in a little coffee house. This is what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, I did my solo thing when I wasn't working in this little coffee house. It used to be Chenet, and that became the living room. But it was like 50 people, and they made the coffees in between songs. And David showed up at one of those, and it was really, really nerve-wracking. But also, it was kind of like sink or swim. And I was like, you know what? He's here. I'd met him, so I wasn't entirely like taken, you know, off my feet. But I was like, all right. And then we just played, and I think he was like, "Can Gerry rock?" was the thing. So apparently, we rocked that night. He asked me to join the band.
Wow.
Yeah, and then later on, my good friend Mark Platty, who was his musical director, had to leave for another project. I'd had a lot of experience in studio work and production, and as well as a musician, so I kind of fitted. Even though I was the youngest member of the band, I kind of fitted to take over the role of musical director. It sounds very fancy, but it was a lot of responsibility. It was a fantastic job.
Do you have any stories, just anything that you can think of the top of your head that stood out in all the time you were with him?
Oh, you know, there was many times. Being around David was like very special. I wonder what. I mean, there was a couple of things that happened on the road. Of my very first show with him, you know, I had to start this really super complicated loop that I'd talked him into letting me do. So I do it live. I get out there and I do this kind of layered, complicated thing, and then the band comes in and the whole show starts. And I'm climbing up this little ladder to do my very first show with him, and he taps me on the shoulder, and I look at him and I think he's going to say, you know, good luck or something. And he's like, can I curse?
No,
don't it up.
Don't beep what?
Don't beep it up, Gerry. You know, and it was one of those things that just snapped me right into like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is David Bowie.
It was very funny though, because it wasn't that kind of like, oh, you know, it's going to be, it was kind of like, psh, you know, and, you know, so that was great. I mean, he came to me, when we did the Next Day record, he called, I live upstate New York now, up around kind of Woodstock area, and I knew he used to come up there to visit with his family in the summer, and I know that he likes espresso, and I do also. Yeah. And I was like, you want to come over for coffee? I thought, well, it's David Bowie. But at the same time, it's David Bowie. And, you know, he's probably up here. I don't know what he does up here. So, yeah. And he's like, yeah, come. He's like, do you have a drum machine? And I was like, yeah, which I didn't have a drum machine. But I was like, yeah, I have a drum machine. He's like, all right, we'll come over and maybe we'll write a song. I was like,
oh, my gosh.
I got a drum machine. So my friend had a nice old drum machine. I ran to his house. I can't tell you what it's for. And he came over and we wrote a few songs and they ended up on the record. It was fantastic.
That's incredible. Well, he was very complimentary about your own music, Spooky Ghost.
Yeah.
I think he said something to the effect, this is a quote that I read recently, that it was the most moving piece of work that he'd heard in a long time. I mean, how lovely is that?
Yeah, it was really, really special. The Light Machine, it's the second second record, A Spooky Ghost, is my solo thing, and I gave it to him, and he came back with that quote, and it was really, really amazing. And he came and I used to do some solo shows on a day off when we were on the road, and he came out to a few shows, and he was very supportive in those ways. When I did the Next Day record with him, he looked really great. This secondary illness came along, and it was pretty aggressive. And so I wasn't involved in the last Black Star record. I'd seen him just before he started the project, and he said to me in his very David kind of cryptic way, he said, "I'm going to be doing something else, Gerry, but don't worry." I was like, okay. And I was walking back to my hotel. I was like, I think that's it. I think he's just going to move on, because he does that. He would take on another band or something. But it was almost like, well, I'm going to do this, but maybe we'll do something again. And then that was it. So it was a shock.
It's just such a wonderful thing to do this celebration. The people in the band with you, are they all his original members?
There's about 5 of us out of an 8-piece band. Right. And actually Earl Slick is a long-time guitar player. His son is playing drums, so it's another generation. And Mike Garson, who's been with them, of course, since 1972, our piano player, his grandson is going to play congas. I mean, his grandson is 10 or 12, I think. So there's other generations. So, but there's about 5 of us out of the band that have played with David, and then we have Bernard Fowler who sings with the Rolling Stones, and Joe Sumner, who's Sting's son, and there's a lot of people with a lot of pedigree there also. Yeah.
Well, look. Thank you so much for talking to us. It's been such a pleasure. I've been dying to meet you, and I can't wait to see this performance tonight. They're calling you now, you know that. Yeah,
I think, we got to go soon. Well, please enjoy the show, and we're looking forward to it too, and lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
Hello to everyone.